The movies gave us a masked white hero called the Lone Ranger riding to the rescue. The actual truth will blow your mind. The genuine Lone Ranger had black skin, and 19 additional black pioneers got completely written out of the record books. Cowboys who'd been enslaved, sharpshooters who got double-crossed, outlaws who faced lynch mobs, and trailblazers who got forgotten. They're the ones who really shaped the frontier, while white folks grabbed all the glory. Get ready for 20 authentic facts revealing black Americans as the real badasses of the Wild West, many meeting tragic or violent ends. Number 1, the Lone Ranger. You've seen him, yeah? That masked frontier legend from our childhoods. Turns out the actual person behind that myth had black skin. Base Reeves came into this world enslaved back in 1838 and broke free when the Civil War erupted. Come 1875, he picked up a federal deputy badge in Arkansas Territory during an era when that felt downright impossible for somebody with his background. Over 30 years, he brought in upwards of 3,000 outlaws across the deadliest territory this country had. His tactics were sharp. He'd dress up like a drifter or a man of the cloth, slip right up to criminals before slapping on the cuffs. He could speak native tongues, and his marksmanship became the stuff of outlaw nightmares. Still, when death came for him in 1910 in Muskogee, Oklahoma, he barely had 2 nickels to rub together. The film industry grabbed his life story, turned the hero white-skinned, and the authentic Lone Ranger got wiped from history for generations. Bass Reeves just completely changed how you think about the Lone Ranger. I've assembled some deep dive files on major frontier personalities and dropped the link in that first comment. If you're someone who refuses to accept the sanitized, surface-level telling of these tales, this material is made for you. No padding, just the stuff Hollywood leaves out. Number 2, Bill Pickett, the ranch hand who wrestled bulls using his mouth. Ever witnessed someone bring down a bull with their teeth? Bill Pickett actually pulled that off. Born in 1870 down in Texas, son of people who'd been enslaved, he grew up watching bulldogs control wild livestock. A wild notion hit him. What if a person did the exact same thing? That's when bulldogging got invented. A method where Pickett seized the steer's horns, cranked its neck around, and chomped the creature's lip until it collapsed. The technique worked like a charm. This guy turned into a sensation at rodeos across America and toured with legendary Wild West exhibitions through Europe and South America. But here's where it gets rough. Despite being a celebrity, hotels wouldn't rent him rooms because of his race. Pickett refused to quit. He kept handling horses right to the finish. Back in April of 1932, at 61 years old, a bucking stallion crushed him on an Oklahoma ranch. He passed away doing the work that had filled his entire existence. Number 3, Nat Love, the ranch hand born in shackles who died in obscurity. His name probably means nothing to you, but Nat Love ranked among the most talented cowboys the frontier ever saw. Born into bondage in Tennessee during 1854, and after the Civil War wrapped up, he stood there at just 11 with absolutely no money. When he hit 15, he struck out solo toward Texas and landed work taming wild horses, the kind that scared everybody else off. He survived gunfights, made it through Native American raids, and covered thousands of miles moving cattle herds. During 1876, at a rodeo up in Deadwood, South Dakota, he dominated every single event and picked up the handle Deadwood Dick. He penned his own life story sharing these adventures. But the years weren't generous. Death found him in 1921 at 66, while working as a railroad porter down in Los Angeles. Virtually nobody remembered him. Number 4, Bose Ikard. You're familiar with Lonesome Dove, correct? The character Josh Dietz drew inspiration from this individual. Bose Ikard entered the world enslaved in Mississippi back in 1843, but his journey took a direction almost nobody could picture. Following the Civil War, he turned into the top lieutenant for Charles Goodnight, one of Texas's most powerful ranchers. Goodnight placed his faith in nobody the way he relied on Bose. During the most treacherous cattle drives the West offered, Bose led the way confronting rustlers, aggressive indigenous peoples, and uncharted land. On one occasion, he even pulled his employer from certain death during an assault. Goodnight, a hardened rancher who didn't waste words, declared Bose superior to any white ranch hand he'd encountered. After Bose died in 1929 at 85, Goodnight covered the cost of his grave marker and composed the inscription personally. Number 5. Mary Fields, called Stagecoach Mary. Were you aware the first black individual to hold a postal route across the United States was a woman pushing 6 feet tall who packed a sidearm and never botched a delivery? Mary Fields got born into slavery in Tennessee somewhere around 1832. Once the Civil War ended, she took work at an Ohio convent until a nun she knew fell ill out in Montana. Mary traveled to assist and stayed for good. At 60, when most folks had already stopped working, she secured the stagecoach driver position because she was the sole candidate who could harness 6 horses in lightning time. Across 8 years, she hauled mail through situations that would give any man pause. Wild animals, bandits, brutal snowstorms, nothing blocked her path. Whenever the coach got trapped in deep snow, she hoisted the mail onto her own shoulders. Mary's life ended in 1914 at 82 in Cascade, Montana. Number 6. Cherokee Bill. Ever heard about the criminal who chuckled at his own hanging? Crawford Goldsby, called Cherokee Bill, carried both black and Cherokee ancestry in his blood. By just 18, he'd turned into Oklahoma Territory's most hunted fugitive. From 1894 through 1895, this young man terrorized rail lines, hit general stores, and stared down lawmen without flinching. The authorities blamed him for 13 murders, including a prison guard during a breakout try. Judge Isaac Parker, notorious for handing death sentences to criminals, took charge of his trial personally. During March of 1896, at 20 years old, Cherokee Bill climbed those gallows steps in Fort Smith, Arkansas. They offered him final words, and he responded, "I came here to die, not to make a speech." Moments later, the floor dropped from beneath him. The most terrifying outlaw on the frontier never lived to 21. Number 7. Isom Dart. Born into bondage around 1849, this individual carved out one of the strangest paths across the Wild West. Post-Civil War, he drifted to Wyoming and began rustling horses. The fascinating angle? He could disappear entirely. He'd swap his identity, transform his appearance, and vanish like mist. Manhunters came up empty. For a stretch, he dwelled with tribal communities, picking up survival tactics few white men possessed. That knowledge kept him breathing for decades in country where black men encountered additional threats, but every winning streak stops. Come October of 1900, at 51, Tom Horn, among the most feared hired killers of that period, caught him in an ambush on Cold Spring Mountain. 2 precise shots concluded the tale of someone who'd spent his whole life slipping away. Number 8. George McJunkin got born enslaved in Texas during 1851, but following the Civil War, he constructed an entirely different existence in New Mexico, earning his keep as a cowboy. He educated himself, learned reading on his own, mastered the violin, and explored geology. Back in 1908, while riding close to Folsom, he spotted something odd in a gully following a flash flood, massive bones scattered among spear tips crafted by human hands. McJunkin invested years attempting to persuade scientists to examine his find, but hardly anyone gave serious attention to a formerly enslaved black individual. He passed in 1922, never witnessing any acknowledgement for his discovery. Only years down the line did researchers validate that the location demonstrated humans occupied the Americas over 10,000 years back, totally transforming accepted knowledge about this continent's past. Number 9. Jim Beckwourth came into existence enslaved in Virginia during 1798, but obtained his liberty and wound up in the western mountains as a fur trader. He located a crucial mountain pass in the Sierras that enabled thousands of settlers to reach California, yet the wildest element of his tale is different entirely. The Crow didn't simply welcome Beckwourth into their tribe, they elevated him to war chief. He battled beside them, took Crow wives, and existed for years as tribal kin. Now here's the angle nobody anticipated. When he died in 1866 at 68, stories claim the Crow may have poisoned him themselves. The reason? Some scholars think it constituted an honor ceremony to bind his spirit with the tribe eternally. Number 10. This is York, the sole black participant on that famous Lewis and Clark expedition that traversed American lands between 1804 and 1806. What many folks don't realize is he'd been born enslaved, property of William Clark from childhood forward. Throughout the journey, the native populations had never laid eyes on a dark-complexioned individual, and numerous people attempted to scrub his skin, assuming it was dye. York tracked game, scouted territory, and put his life on the line, identical to everyone else. Yet upon return, Clark denied him freedom for years afterward. Only following considerable pressure did he finally gain release. He attempted earning money hauling cargo, but the venture collapsed. Historical records suggest he succumbed to cholera somewhere around 1832 in St. Louis, essentially overlooked. An individual who assisted in charting a nation, but someone history required centuries to genuinely acknowledge. York contributed to mapping a nation yet still returned home in bondage. I've compiled some deep dive files on frontier tales most people never encounter and posted the link in that first comment. If the polished, comfortable history version doesn't satisfy you and you want the complete picture, this material exists for you. Number 11. Biddy Mason. Know the account of the woman who traveled 1,700 miles on foot, trailing a Mormon wagon convoy, and finished up as one of Los Angeles's wealthiest residents? Biddy Mason got born enslaved in Georgia back in 1818 and got dragged across the nation walking to California, caring for livestock and kids the entire route. Upon arrival, she discovered slavery was outlawed in that state. The catch: her master kept that fact hidden. Biddy had to challenge him in court independently to secure her freedom, and she prevailed in 1856. Afterward, she took work as a midwife, hoarded every cent, and began purchasing property in downtown Los Angeles when the city remained dust and ranches. Those parcels transformed into a fortune. She applied the wealth to feed inmates, establish churches, and support struggling families. She died in 1891 at 72, controlling an empire constructed from nothing. Number 12. Clara Brown entered life enslaved in Virginia during 1800. At 56, after finally obtaining her liberty, most individuals would consider relaxing. Clara chose otherwise. She headed out for Colorado right during the gold rush peak. She arrived broke, but carrying a strategy. She laundered garments and prepared meals for prospectors, crushing labor plenty of men couldn't manage. She accumulated sufficient funds to acquire real estate in Denver. But here's the element that strikes deep. She exhausted nearly everything searching for her family who'd been auctioned and divided decades prior. Following years of hunting, she located the daughter she'd believed lost forever. Denver residents dubbed her an angel, not because it had a pleasant ring, but because she genuinely aided whoever required assistance. She reached 85, dying in October of 1885. Number 13. This account sounds invented, but it genuinely occurred. During 1866, a formerly enslaved woman from Missouri made a decision that might have killed her. Cathy Williams dressed as a male and enlisted in the United States Army, using the alias William Cathy. She became the only verified woman to serve among the Buffalo Soldiers, those renowned black military units that facilitated Western expansion. Across 2 years, Cathy walked hundreds of miles, endured the New Mexico wasteland, and protected her secret from every person surrounding her. Military physicians evaluated her multiple times and never discovered the truth. Only after she fell gravely ill in 1868 did everything surface, and she got discharged. Following that, she labored as a cook and seamstress in Colorado, living her final years destitute. She passed around 1893 and nearly slipped from historical memory. Number 14. Louisa Marchbanks entered the world enslaved in Tennessee back in 1833. Post-Civil War, she landed in Wyoming and became among the most requested cooks across the Wild West. But here's the striking element. This woman who began life without liberty wound up preparing meals for United States presidents. That's correct, presidents. The prospectors in Deadwood labeled her Aunt Lou and queued up to sample her cooking. She gained recognition not solely for her culinary talents, but for providing food to anyone who appeared at her entrance hungry during an era when formerly enslaved individuals were struggling to endure. Louisa established a standing that spanned social divisions. She passed in March of 1911 at 78, following a life hardly anyone would have thought achievable for someone who started where she began. Number 15. This is Jesse Stahl, among the finest bronco busters to ever enter a rodeo ring. Born sometime near 1879, this guy possessed such skill at his craft that judges simply couldn't dismiss him. But here's the element that'll leave you speechless. Despite completely dominating every competition, the highest awards consistently went to White Ranch hands. So, what did Jesse do? He began mounting the nastiest horses facing backward purely to demonstrate he was superior regardless. It constituted a deliberate challenge, a method of communicating wordlessly that the system was corrupt. The individual converted shame into quiet resistance. He traveled throughout the American West for decades, drawing audiences who paid to witness his achievements. He died in 1935 at 56, but his account remained concealed for generations. Number 16. Henrietta Stewart. During 1858, a girl got born in Canada who would shatter obstacles many believed were unbreakable. Henrietta Stewart not only became a physician during an era when women couldn't even cast votes, but she established her medical practice in New Mexico, territory that remained untamed and perilous. Consider it. A black woman treating hardened miners and indigenous families during the late 1800s. Each day presented a fight against bigotry, but her patients stopped caring about skin tone when they needed healing. And she stood there prepared to serve them. The most remarkable aspect? Henrietta survived until 1951, reaching 93. She witnessed the planet radically transform surrounding her from wagon days to humanity's initial space ventures, an entire lifetime committed to caring for individuals who frequently didn't even honor her. Number 17. During 1982, Charlie Sampson created history in a manner few anticipated. He turned into the first black individual to capture a world rodeo championship within the Professional Rodeo Cowboys Association. Consider that. Rodeo had forever been white cowboy domain, a custom reaching back to Wild West days. Sampson grew up in Los Angeles, distant from cattle country, but something regarding those bulls and untamed horses captured his focus. This guy shattered ribs, got his body battered repeatedly, and still kept mounting those 2,000-pound beasts. Each time he competed, he understood it might be his final ride. Yet he refused to stop. His victory opened barriers that had stayed locked for over 100 years, demonstrating talent and bravery possessed no color. Number 18. Ben Hodges came into existence around 1840 and figured out quickly that his greatest tool wasn't a gun, but his silver tongue. This black ranch hand from Kansas devised a con that functioned for decades. He'd masquerade as Native American to swindle naive ranchers. He rustled livestock, employing costumes and fabricated tales, consistently escaping before anyone revealed the fraud. The most remarkable element? He never got arrested for any of it. The law knew his identity, but Hodges perpetually had an excuse or a believable explanation. He grasped legal matters as thoroughly as any attorney of his time. While different criminals perished young in shootouts, Ben existed peacefully until approximately 1929, passing from natural causes in Dodge City. The frontier swindler demonstrated that occasionally intelligence defeats firepower. Number 19. Willie Kennard accepted the Marshal's Star in Yankee Hill, Colorado. During a period when hardly any black individuals held authority positions out west, the settlement was getting terrorized by a gang that had run off any lawman who appeared. The criminals themselves, entertained by the circumstances, challenged Kennard to accept the position, certain he'd be simple prey. It backfired spectacularly. Kennard confronted the ringleaders in individual gunfights and eliminated both with lethal precision. The gang dispersed, and the settlement finally enjoyed safety. What followed afterward stays unclear since documentation from the 1880s simply ceased referencing him. Scholars continue arguing whether the tales got embellished across the years, but one element is definite: somebody cleaned that settlement up and the identity that remained was his. Willie Kennard's tale, finishing in mystery, is precisely how the frontier gets compressed into partial truths. I've assembled some deep dive files on major frontier personalities and posted the link in that first comment. If you're someone who despises the shallow telling and craves the genuine grit, it's waiting for you. Number 20. Addie Huddleston accomplished something hardly anyone thought achievable across the Wild West. During an era when black individuals confronted savage obstacles in virtually everything, she constructed a genuine empire in Cheyenne, Wyoming. Huddleston operated brothels and accumulated considerable wealth, becoming among the richest women in that region. What's noteworthy is she conducted business openly, settled her taxes, and dealt with the local establishment. Documents demonstrate that officials and merchants patronized her establishments without significant public controversy. Within a society that separated nearly everything, currency and discretion unlocked barriers that typically remained sealed. Addie passed from natural causes during the 1880s, which proved unusual considering how hazardous the occupation could be. Her tale reveals a dimension of the frontier that cinema seldom portrays.